Okay, and it looks like I am live. So for today, it's going to be a little bit more of a casual stream. And what I'm going to be doing is addressing some comments for from the community about the new rules edition, and mostly just chilling with chat, answering questions and clarifying different topics. So with that out of the way, I'll go ahead and advertise the stream, and then we can dive into some ranked battles while I go ahead and answer questions. Let's see, so I'll be streaming. Ranked battles under the test rule set. Feel free to come by and ask questions. All right. I think that's more or less good. Let's go ahead and post the message up and wait for some people to drop by. In the meantime, I'll go ahead and queue up into a best of 3. And then we'll take it from there. See, there's already a few people in chat. So hopefully everything goes smoothly today. I suspect I will need some moderation in chat, but otherwise should be fairly good. Pantaga, hello. Welcome. Been a long day, but the stream I think should work decently well, just so that I can address people's comments and questions immediately. And yeah, basically that. I know there's been a lot of controversial changes to the rules, but those are being worked on and discussed as I stream right now. Yeah, just moderations like you know, mods. AJ Phoenix. Yes, this is where you come to complain. You can go as far as saying that that you dislike the changes. That's perfectly fine. You're free to express your opinions as long as you're being civil about it, of course. And here we go. Looks like Butcherbird is our opponent. Sweet. So I'll set up a lobby for him. Can we find a draft of the new test rules somewhere? Yes, I'll post it in chat. I was considering having it in the description, but at the moment, since we are expecting some more changes fairly soon, I'm just gonna stick with posting it in chat. So here you go. Feel free to check it out. And yeah, I'll be trying to explore specific issues today that people have been asking about, specifically like skirmishers and so on. I know there's been worry about chaos and empire and dark elves and so on. So we'll see. Tiago asking, how's my day? It's been a day. Lots of people have been expressing their concerns about the rules. And I'm just doing my best to try to communicate properly with the community, and this stream is part of that. So fingers crossed it all goes okay. Yes, the skirmisher change is quite impactful. And yeah, that's the thing that's like highest priority right now that we're looking at, because obviously it's a nerf to skirmishers. I'm just trying to judge how it actually feels at the moment, but I do feel like it would be good to make it a little bit more loose, since I don't think kite play was generally dominant. It was more just that skirmishers were. Yes, 5 chameleon skinks and 2 solar engines are out for this rule set. So lizardmen definitely, in terms of what they can bring, they're going to be hurting a little bit. That's a very big understatement. Solar engines as skirmishers is a bit unfair. Could be. I'll be trying out lizardmen just to see how it feels. The reasoning for that was sort of because Necrofex had in terms of kite play, Vampire Coast was kiting with Necrofex, which would really tip the favor in their balance because they didn't count as skirmishers. So we're sort of just experimenting how the restrictions go. In terms of lizardmen, it does feel pretty crazy though, so we'll have to see. Shades for sure. I will be taking a look at shades and how they impact Dark Riders for sure. But yeah, I think what is very good though is that this is sparking a lot of just discussion about the rules in general, which is nice because beforehand we would basically have no feedback and no discussion, so this should be good. Salon is a super weapon. How is that on the same level as a steam tank or a star dragon? Have you seen Croak? He's leveled cities before. It's crazy. But memes aside, super weapons is more just from the original banner rules, which we sort of used as our starting point. Okay, so beastmen ban vampire counts and lizardmen. So let's see, what's a good faction for a kite style of play? I'm thinking I could go for dark elves here. See how that feels. Skirmish Cav and 360 has always been 2 different caps. Yes, indeed. They used to be 2 different caps in practice. It didn't really make a huge difference since most skirmishers were on cavalry. The thing that we were trying to go for was just simplifying the descriptions a bit, since a lot of the limits seem to be targeting skirmishers, like the chariot cap on dark elves and so on. But yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Yeah, Kroken Lifeslon. Yeah, Mazdamundi is a super weapon. Yeah. Let's see, they were from Shetland's old rules, if you remember correctly. I see. It might be something we want to look at. It's not like we're beholden to super weapons. But at the moment, we have quite a bit on our plate right now, so... yeah, this'll be it. Now, one thing that I want to test is that the Dark Elf Skirmisher limit is going to be a bit more impacted. For example, the biggest thing is that Scourge Runners plus Dark Rider Repeater Crossbows, you can only take 6 Skirmishers. So before you would be able to do... Actually, no, you wouldn't be able to do this because Missile Cavalry and Missile Chariots was also limited. So that doesn't actually really change. You can't take Shades in this build, but I don't think you would usually anyways. So honestly, the Dark Elf build is more or less the same in terms of a kite style of play. Super weapon is old stuff. That's good to know. Yeah, you couldn't do 4+ floor. So it's really just the Shades. And I know the Shades is really weird. We're talking about that, and that will likely get scaled back by how discussions are going. But no promises yet. Shades plus Corsairs versus Beastmen. Oh yeah, that would actually be more limited now because if we take a bunch of Corsairs, we actually can't take Shades. So that's a big difference. Let's see. I could try that out. You know what? Let's try that. If I go for like a Corsair build like this, and then I don't know, and then Missile Cavalry. Yeah. Usually before you'd be able to take more Dark Riders here, but in this case you can't. So that could have an impact for sure. The biggest issue with the new rules are inconsistencies. Skinks and skink javelins. Yes, I'm pretty sure there should be variants. It wouldn't be a big change to make them variants either. So, in terms of actual changes, I imagine that'll get pushed through. In fact, let me double check real quick. We have a changelog section for the rules, schedule changes anyways. So I'll double check. I'll put up a message actually. But anyways, I'll keep working on this. But yes, miners and blasting charges are still variants. I think the skinks and skink skirmishers make sense for sure. But yeah, all in all, that's pretty minor though. The only difference is 2 skinks, so I don't think that actually dramatically changes the play. Just that, of course, we want to be fixing up inconsistencies. Now, how do I want to finish off this build? I can go for what is new. I can go above 10 on the Corsair limit. In fact, I can do something crazy like this where I have 10 Corsairs. We'll see how that goes. I guess my Lord. Stick with Marathi. Since there's no real point diverging extremely just yet. And then what? 2 assassins? I think they do count as skirmishers because they're 360. Yes, they are. So I actually can't go for assassins either. Please don't let them have 10 skinks. What's the difference between 10 and 8 skinks? That's a 600 gold difference, really. Alright, so let's see. If I just take a bunch of cavalry, this feels okay. Then what? Like a Scourge Runner? It's a little bit of a strange build. It doesn't really have a ton going on. I have 6 skirmishers, some cavalry, and a Corsair frontline. And I deal with single entities, possibly. We'll have to test it out. Foot Lokier is amazing for speedsmen, really? That's interesting. 4 handbows, 2 normal, and then 2 sword shades. I haven't tried the melee shades very often. J Phoenix, you're saying 10 skinks is very annoying for lizard men. Okay, I see. We'll think about it. I'm wondering how often we'll see it, but yeah. Anyways, nevertheless, I'm pretty sure that will get addressed, so that's not too much of a problem. Never underestimate the power of skinks. That is true. Yeah. Especially just, I think purely consistency-wise is probably the strongest argument there. Skavenblight Radio, hello. Hey, welcome. How's the YouTube going? Haven't been able to keep up with your channel too much. Right now we're in a moment of testing out the rules and just interacting with the community, making sure everyone's heard and so on. You thought it was 5 max for skirmishers. Oh, that's true. It is 5. Yes. I forgot. Oh man, this build is illegal. Oh man, that's good to know. Yeah, so I'll have to put one of my Corsairs in the back. Great Weapon Centaurs beat Cold One Knights. Yeah, I'd say that makes sense. High AP armor will lose to low armor piercing AP. Wait, to low armor piercing. I think it's like ATM machine sort of business. You took 10 days off because work needed you. It's true. Soon you'll be streaming every other day. Ooh, that's very exciting, man. Good to hear. All right. Oops. Broke a limit. I'll put the unit in the back corner. Put him right here so that he's nice and visible. And then, yeah, we'll have to play with a bit of a handicap. See how this plays out. I do still have quite a bit of kite potential. The Scourge Runner Chariot will surely help me out here. That sentence was a bit of a grammar car crash. Which one? The one I said? I wouldn't be surprised. Are these limits for a tournament? Yes, my upcoming tournament on Friday will be using the new rule set. And that is just to test it out, see how it feels. Also just to gauge community reaction and to get a ton of feedback, which we definitely are. But at the moment, it's not going to be used for ECL. It's not going to be used for My Son HW. Those tournaments are going to be sticking with banner rules until much, much later. Oh, Stormrunner, you're talking about the armor thing? Ah, yeah. It's fine. Let's see the variation limit sucks. It is pretty crazy to have 10 Corsairs. That is, I'm feeling something there. Whether or not I'm disgusted by it or not, I'm not sure. You got my Discord, no escape now. Oh man, I'll never be free. But yeah, so far I think things are going pretty well. I'm quite... Oh, Skavenblight, you're saying you're hyped for Warhammer 3? Oh, for sure. What it does to the rules, who knows, but I'm excited. But yeah. Oh man. Eventually I'll need to pop into my Discord too to answer some questions and so on. But for now, I'm just going to be chilling with people in chat. I think in general it's going to be a little bit more civil too. Although actually a lot of the action on my Discord has been civil. So I think more or less we should be fine. I think the limit of 5 skirmishers, it is very interesting though. I am down like 750 gold. That is of course my mistake. I think kite builds, it'll really depend on how things play out. But I think kite builds would just sort of lean in more towards I think they would lean in more towards cavalry styles of play if they can't take as many skirmishers. I don't really think they'll be doomed or anything. But we'll have to see. Especially with this first engagement going on. We are seeing the Beastmen. Of course, they are extremely mobile and can go in for some pretty fast engagements here. Also, feel free to continue asking questions in chat. I will be looking mostly at chat instead of commentating like I usually do, just to make sure that I am indeed addressing everything. Just notice that with the variation rule, we can now bring spearmen for the Empire to 8. You can now bring 8 spearmen as the Empire, you're saying. Yeah, the one thing that does change it though is the Empire, they do actually get pretty beat up because of the change to halberds and how they count as a variant. That definitely sort of puts them in a pretty awkward position. Handbows beat Centaurs in melee, that's good to know. I did take a little bit of a bad engagement there, but we'll continue retreating away and seeing how we do. One of the big misplays I did was I lost all of my cavalry, which doesn't feel extremely good, I must say. Definitely a big misplay. Let's see, how many kite tools do I still have? Just a couple handbows. But Marathi's now surrounded. I think this game's probably lost. But yeah, I think the Empire changes are definitely really big. We've been getting a lot of responses. Yeah, this is gonna be GG. We've been getting a lot of responses about Empire and their kiting abilities. And how, yeah, how Empire can be pretty adversely affected. I'm gonna be trying that out since the skirmish limit is 5 now. In fact, I can go Empire right now. Let's see, the next map is Summer Song. Yeah, halberds changing is gonna hurt Empire box builds a lot. If that is felt though, it's as simple as moving the variant to just the rest of the Empire units, and then that wouldn't be too much of a problem. Let's see, where's that map? Summer Song, there we go. Okay, I'll go Emp, ban. Let's see, what do you ban as Empire? I guess Bretonia and Lizardman? We'll try it out, see how it goes. This is a pretty big map, so we'll see. You were worried about chaos, but there's no way they need more than 8 chosen warriors. That seems about right. Try 5 miners and 11 range units with Dowie. Oh, are miners, do miners not count as range anymore in the rules? I thought they still did. I've been doing a lot of community management, so I might have missed a few things. People are really going on about dwarves. They do lose a gyrocopter, which does hurt. Of course, the 5 gyrocopter build is pretty cheesy, but yeah, we'll see. Now, this is a pretty good test. So Empire are going to be limited in the... They're going to be down a skirmisher. Now, usually they couldn't go above 6 before because of the limit to mounted / chariot skirmishers or missile cavalry. So what really changes is that Empire, they can't really field as many ranged guns as they could before. I'm thinking in this case, 3 war wagons, 2 outrider grenade launchers is pretty nice. It's pretty expensive, but it makes up for the fewer units that I can bring. That is true. Chaos will have fewer skirmishers too. So Empire could still have a pretty good chance here. Butcherbird ain't gonna hard counter my man here. I don't think Butcherbird's gonna, you know, stream snipe and hard counter me. That seems like that'd be weird. I do expect him to take a good handful of skirmishers though, up to 6 or 5, my bad. Now, let's see, Lord-wise, I do like Boris, although Volkmar is actually pretty good, especially with the new cycle charging rules. We'll see if he's very abusable or not, and how the cycle charging rules actually play out. Can you get a quick rundown of the skirmisher change? Yes, so more units have been identified as skirmishers. The skirmisher limit is down to 5. And it's been all the old 360 rules and the ranged cavalry rules have been merged together into a generic skirmisher title. So in general, it's sort of aiming for the same thing the rules did before, but at the moment it's a bit more restrictive. You mean he could have taken dwarves? Oh no, I'll happily face dwarves as Empire. Yeah, no, that's a playstyle that's been practiced quite a bit. All right, so I have my kite here, and I guess I'll probably just go with a bunch of Knights of the Blazing Sun, and then something just to round out the build, I guess. Probably a caster. That seems important. What type of caster do I want? I'll go for a Jade Wizard, just so I can keep my cavalry alive a little bit better. Do I want a regrowth? I'll go Dwellers Below for the Volkmar combination. And then sort of just go heavy on the Knights of the Blazing Sun. This feels okay, but not amazing. We'll have to see how it plays out. I also don't have any Pistoliers, which worries me a bit. I'm really tempted to take the Silver Bullets too, but I'm sort of worried they're gonna get caught. No, I'm gonna go for it. And then go for more cavalry base play. But yeah, against dwarves, if you go for mass ranged and a couple wind spells, dwarves have a pretty rough time there actually. Darn it, 1 gold away from perfect spend. But yeah, this build should be legal. Yeah, it looks like it is. We Rangers with 10 Rangers, regular and Bugmans. It's a little bit. It could be, yeah. So I think a mass dwarf range build. How would that play out? Because Empire can also go for 12 ranged. They go for you go mass handgunner and mass handgunner and crossbowman, and you go for the wait, do I have, is this legal? Is this legal? Oh geez. 100. I think it's barely legal. Yeah. But yeah, against dwarves, you go for handgunners, crossbowmen, and lore of fire. The lore of fire with burning head will do pretty good against bugmans. And then from there, you can win the range fight. Just go heavy on the wind spells. Biblington, you said you had to play that matchup against Hadries in the qualifier, and it was a rough game. Yeah, I don't think it's like easy by any means, but it's a matchup I've played enough where I'm happy to do it. But yeah, the rest is like you take a couple of units of cavalry and some great swords, just so that if they're rushing you with dwarf warriors, you can intercept. But that's the general idea. Where can you find the new rules? You can in my Discord. You can check that out in my description, and I'll also post it in chat. At the moment, it's not in the description, just because I don't want, once we update the rules, I don't want people to have an outdated version. But at the moment, it's in my Discord. That would be the best place to find it. But yeah, it should be pretty exciting. It's definitely a pretty big shakeup. It's also a little bit more restrictive than I would like, but in playtesting the games, it seems like a lot of play styles still more or less work out. But we'll have to see. I'm interested to see if this Empire build really fails hard here, because the one main benefit that Empire gets is that, of course, Chaos also can't field as many skirmishers. So yeah, could be good. Silver bullets are going to be protecting me on the ground level too. And yeah, we'll see how this goes. All lizardmen range units except for javelins count as skirmishers now. It looks like a very heavy nerf. Yes, I think let's see. If you look at lizardmen before, the main thing is that they would go, they usually go pretty heavy on the chameleon skinks. And because of how good chameleon skinks are, it sort of drowns out salamanders. Especially with the new changes, salamanders are extremely hard hit, sort of unnecessarily so. And that's something that's been brought up in the discussion. That is a change that that we're actively looking for. Salamanders and Shade specifically. Sort of removing the skirmisher tag on them, since it doesn't really seem necessary. The bigger question is how we're going to do it, and we're not sure the best way, because on one way you can make an exception, in which case you're sort of choosing skirmishers arbitrarily, which isn't terrible, but yeah, I'm not sure. We'll have to see how it plays out. Is there a timestamp where you can watch the new rules? At the moment, it's just a document. I haven't really gone over them in this video. Because at the moment, actually testing things out is going to be a bit more important here. Never seen a single unit of Shades in competitive. Yeah, Shades are pretty uncommon, I must say. Okay, so I got first volley off. Silver bullets are doing pretty good. So far the kite game's going okay. My Outriders did take... Man, they took a lot of damage there. I'm actually going to give them a heal, just to try and pick them up a little bit. And then use these war wagons to kite. 360 has a lower limit than non-360. What do you mean? I think in the rules right now, 360 isn't really a thing. It's more so like 360-degree units are what's it? It's like 360-degree units just count as skirmishers simply. Let's see. You've never seen... Oh yeah, you don't know why people are complaining about the shades? I think it's more so just that it doesn't really feel very great, especially on a faction that a lot of people say are pretty bad right now. They don't want to see, you know, Dark Elves get more beat up than they already are. So I understand the sentiment. I think it's a little bit extreme, sort of the worry. But a lot of people do like experimenting, and not being able to take as many shades is sort of sucks for them. For the skirmishers, the 360 has a lower limit than non-360. I'm not sure I really follow there. Ilithanar is more like a bolt thrower, not a skirmisher. Well, like, bolt throwers can't exactly run away and shoot at the same time. The general idea there is that a lot of single entities can get as much damage as a multi-unit skirmisher simply by shooting at lords and so on. They can actually get a pretty nice value. And because of that, and because we're trying to be fair on limiting skirmishers across factions, we decided to target lords too and give them the marker. Let's see, who is Dark Elves getting beaten up by? Only Ice Power plays Dark Elves, and he beats up everyone with it. That is true. In a game where the community is this small, the perceptions of the meta are pretty sort of like not super well defined, just because there's so much stuff to test. So we don't really know what's strong and what isn't. Not as much as like a game like StarCraft, let's say. You wouldn't want to make a repeat of an explanation. Oh, that's fine. That's what the stream is for. Yeah, I am here to repeat myself for the whole day. Essentially, I want to make sure that our intentions are clear with the rules, just because, you know, there's a lot of people that are obviously worried about the changes, and I want to make sure that everything is as transparent as possible, so that as few people are worried possible. The Discord ping noise. Oh, there's a Discord ping noise in the background. Yes, I will mute that right away. Yeah. I do not want Discord to be pinging during my stream. And I know that will drive some people insane. So there you go, it's muted now. We should be good. Pretty sure everyone you've talked to has a different idea of what the meta is. Yeah, that seems to make sense. Like, unless we're having a World Cup tournament, basically every month, the meta just isn't going to develop fast enough. There are just so many different factions in Warhammer. It's going to be a while before we actually have a hard set on the meta, plus like balance patches and so on. It's going to be a while. You left for a week. What is going on with the banner changes? So at the moment, wow, that final transmutation is brutal. At the moment, the changes and the way that they're working is that we're testing out a fairly restrictive rule set where a lot of people well, no, we're testing out a fairly restrictive rule set, and yeah, right now the biggest restriction is on skirmishers. They've been their limit has been reduced, and the number of units that are actually counted as skirmishers has been increased. So a few more units count than they did before. And at the moment, the rules are in testing phase, so we're seeing how that plays out. Man, that sartorial jump was brutal. Are you seeing this? Sartorial just dived right into my backline like it was nothing. Routed off My guy, my caster. Let's see. Glenn, you're a mod? I guess you are. I have quite a few mods on stream, so I don't really keep track anymore. Yes, the changes are to keep us sort of just keep everything afloat between now and Total War Warhammer 3. The general idea right now is that we don't really know when Warhammer 3 is coming out, and given that it could be, who knows, up to half a year before that game comes out, we're going to be experimenting with the rules at least a bit longer. I need to pull away this direction so that I don't get pushed into the corner, and I also need to pull away from the tree line so I'm not forest camping. Sartorial has a very good animation, yeah. Let's see, it's basically just slight changes to forest engagement rules along with a second set of experimental rules. Yeah, we also released a section on that is a lot more tame than the rest of the rules. Basically, yeah, just only looking at the forest section and some white line camping and other stuff. So we do have a variant of the rule, the main version that is much more tame in terms of changes, where the unit variations are basically the same. That's another final transmutation. That's gonna hurt. Is Grom now banned? I know a lot of people would have enjoyed that, but Grom is sadly not banned. At least sadly for some of you guys. He is yeah, he is still reigning supreme. In fact, cycle charging rules in the version that we're looking at got changed. Where late game cycle charging is actually going to be a lot more powerful than it used to be. And that's something that we're going to be keeping an eye on too. As of course, cycle charging can become a pretty big issue if you're not super careful with it. And that's sort of why I brought Volkmar here. In case we do get to a late game situation, I want to see how the cycle charges actually play out in a late game situation. But in testing, it seemed like even if you do cycle charging with the new mass changes, they really can the enemy can really trade fairly well, even if you're cycle charging. Fanatics, at least limited to one. No, not at the moment. We weren't really trying to go for a direct game balance changes, more so just looking at the, oh, my caster's still routing. We weren't looking at direct game balance changes to nerf greenskins. At least that wasn't really a priority. More so we were just looking at sort of changing the rules for consistency wise. And let's see what else. There was something else there, but I'm trying to focus on micro right now. Bound spell limit? Like what do you mean by bound spell limit? We already do have a rule that that does sort of have that. But yeah, anyways, we weren't trying to directly nerf greenskins. More so just sort of test out a bunch of changes that have been proposed over the years. Since of course there were a lot of ideas sort of going around. Oh man, I see someone talking about domination mode in chat. That's gonna be super exciting. I can't wait for a new game mode. The biggest hope for me is that it would really reduce how much we need the attacking rules, and that would be really nice if we don't have to rely on attacking rules as much. Is there anything that makes Dowie any more viable in multiplayer, or are they still a rare pick? At the moment, they are still a rare pick. There's nothing Yeah, and the Dowie haven't really changed in a really long time. So they're more or less the same. Although a lot of dwarf players do just constantly work on Dowie builds. So we have seen them do pretty well in some matchups, surprisingly enough. All right, there we go. GG. That was a pretty scary game. The fact that I couldn't spend as much on Pistoliers was definitely felt. Still worked out okay. But that was definitely pretty scary. Let's see here. If we look at values, yeah, everything did pretty good. Handgunners did great. Dowie mains are terrifying. Oh, they are. A lot of Dowie mains will work on matchups for just forever to try and come up with a solution. Let's see. Yeah, game 3 is going to shake things up a lot, especially in terms of balance. But here we go. So I'm on to my pick 3 now. We go ahead and set that up. What's it going to be? Pillar of Bone is the map. How did Sartorial die? He has like 50% missile resist. He took a few hits from Volkmar. I think most of it actually, surprisingly enough, was the war wagons. He soaked up like a lot of their ammunition. Let's see, map is set. Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. What are 3 factions that we want to look at? High Elves? The Volkswagen, yeah. Interestingly enough, with the new rules, you can take Volkmar and 4 war wagons now, because there's no limit on chariots. It's really dumb, but in a sense, the rules did get more lax on that front. High Elves, Lizardmen, and Wood Elves, let's say. And let's invite Greenskins. See how that goes. I'll ban. I don't know. I'll ban Skaven or something. I'll ban Greenskins just because it makes sense. Counters, some undead / elves, some chaos. Yeah, this my lineup could have some bad counters, I think. Butcherbird did play Beastmen and Chaos though, so that helps me. I've been able to ban out most of the well, I don't have to worry about most of the rush factions. You fear the gyrocopters if Turin pilots them? Ooh, I don't think I've seen that yet. Let's see. They know how to play dwarves. They're super scary. Yeah. Dwarves, I think a lot of it will come down to build selection. And then the rest is dodging spells and abilities with your slow infantry. You will need much faster reaction time, but Dowie mains know what they're doing. Ban only Grom. Oh man, that'd be hilarious. So you can ban one, let's say you can ban one faction, and you can also ban one lord. Just cause. Butcherbird swears greenskins aren't OP. I think they're definitely strong. I wouldn't say they're like super duper problematic. I think a lot of people are playing them a ton, but it's strange because a lot of people can play greenskins just because they think they're meta instead of them actually being good. But I haven't done nearly enough testing to be an authority here. Did Ice Power hear that? He might have some words to say. If only he was in chat. Just be careful. If you say it 3 times, Ice Power will appear. Oh, we're seeing a Wood Elves ban Lizardmen pick. Okay, so I can go High Elves here. And one of the things that people were worried about was that the new rules allow for Lothern Seaguard ×8. Now, one thing. The unshielded variant actually do have a stat difference. They have They have more speed. Now, I don't think that's huge, but, you know, we'll see how this plays out. This against Wood Elves could be pretty scary. And we'll have to see if a Lothern Seaguard meta actually becomes a thing. Prior to, it would have been essentially, you know, you go with your usual 5 Seaguard and then some archers. And usually the 5 Seaguard can defend the archers. But in this case, we're going to try to push the army limits a little bit further. Let's see how that goes. So yes, here we go. Seaguard are at 8. You really think it's funny before Stone Trolls? You didn't realize trolls were good. Well, Stone Trolls really shook things up a lot. I think even since the beginning, people have sort of been a little bit worried about the Stone Trolls. Because of, well, yeah, even before the DLC actually launched, in some tournaments, people were real worried about Stone Trolls being very strong. Although actually, I think pump wagons were actually brought up more often than Stone Trolls. So it's sort of hit or miss on what people are worried about. Go the 5 shielded variant. That seems like a better choice. For only an extra 500. Oh, interestingly enough, I can actually go pretty heavy on the cavalry too. One thing that changed is that you can take a lot more silver helms than you could before, because they don't count as the same unit. In this case, I simply don't have enough money though, so I'll stick with just the 2. I'm tempted to go Dragon Princes though. They're pretty good. Puts me really tight on money, but we shall see. This is a weird build. I have like no front line. Lothern Seaguard are variant 8 max, indeed. So I cut one shielded. I cut one unshielded to add a shielded variant. Okay, so I have a ton of physical resist on Alariel. It will help against like Way Watchers, so I guess that's fine. At Enticity, are you doing the experimental rules? I am. So that's what I'm testing out. Just playing around with the new limits, seeing how they feel. At the moment, it doesn't seem like it. There's too many problems going on. Like I can still play kite builds if I want to, and the fact that I don't have to worry about skirmishers as much is, it's definitely an impact. Whether or not this is something we want in the official rules has yet to be seen. Okay, ready. So the idea here is that I have so many Lothern Seaguard, I don't need as much of a front line. We'll see how well that theory holds up. Usually I would just prefer archers just so I can take normal spears, but we'll see. Our Ungor Spearmen, different from their shielded versions now. Let me double check. Yes, so spears, unshielded and shielded, and axes for the Ungor count as variants. So you can go 8 spear Ungors if you want for Beastmen, and Gore Herd count as separate variants too. So you can go up to 8. For Empire, they do count as variants. One controversial change is that the Halberdiers count as a variant now, which means that you can't take nearly as much cheap infantry as you could before. And that's something that's going to be looked into, whether or not that is overly hindering for the Empire. But yeah, that's definitely something that's like pretty high priority to look at. The 15 range difference between the Lothern Seaguard and standard archer is pretty massive here. One reason against Lothern Seaguard spam. Ooh, yeah, that makes sense. And also just the fact that archers are so much cheaper. I don't think this build is going to be something that is super worrying. Bretonian pole arms as well. Oh, to look at that. Yeah. I think that sort of the way the variants were set up is more so just sort of like trying to encapsulate as much as it can, really, except for ranged variants, which do count as different units now. And we're seeing how that plays out. It does feel like it is a bit restrictive, though. I do agree. In the experimental version, the only units that count as the same are some dinos. Yes, the general push that sort of started it all was removing the same unit classification and moving on to just calling things variants. And yeah, so far it doesn't seem like a bad idea, but I think a little bit of tuning is going to be warranted to make sure that the rules aren't overly restrictive. Let's see, stags, an ancient engine of the gods. Oh, stegodons. Yeah, so the stegodon thing, the fact that they count as the same is purely a balance choice because of stegodons and Mazda Mundi, really. I was sort of against it, but you know, putting it in the rules does allow us to play test it and feel it out. But yeah, I sort of tend towards the side of having much more loose rules in terms of restrictions. I'm sort of in a sense very much so in the same camp as oh man, what's his face? Oh no, I don't remember his name. There's the Viking. Yeah, I know the Viking, when he hosts tournaments, he has rules that are pretty like loose. They allow you to go pretty free in terms of what you decide to take. I'm sort of more in that camp, but I think it's worth trying out these more restricted styles. Yes, mammoths also count as the same unit, I think. Yeah, that's also another sort of exception. Okay, so at the moment, yeah, I'm just gonna be trying to use my Lothar Sea Guard as effectively as possible, making sure that I am blocking many of these shots as I can. What's this? High Mage. So there's actually no no nets here, so that's pretty good for me. I'm wondering what Alariel should do here. I could have her do a bit of healing. That doesn't seem too bad. Oh, that's bad. I forgot about that. Yeah, Soul Quench. Soul Quench is a very nice ability for devastating infantry lines if you line it up correctly. You have to be pretty careful about it. Not the moment my opponent's doing a good job at keeping my units from facing the right direction. So I need to reposition to make sure that I'm actually shooting at the right targets. And I also need to make sure that my flanks aren't exposed in this matchup. One big difference though is that the Wood Elves here can't take 6 skirmishers. They're limited to 5. The response here is usually they'll go for more Way Watchers. But not having as many Deep Wood Scouts is going to hurt the Wood Elves a lot. I think the change it most largely impacts the Deep Wood Scout. I don't think you'll be seeing them nearly as often. Okay, so interesting situation. I don't have much of a front line, and I really do need my cavalry to do well here. And I'm not sure if my cavalry is gonna do super great if I'm suiciding them into these into the Wood Elf cavalry. I'm thinking this likely won't go very well, but it's We'll see, we'll see. I wish I could have thrown a Star of Averlorn over here onto my other guys, but I guess it's too late now. Go ahead and use a L'Oreal to patch up these Dragon Princes a bit. Looks like the left flank sort of traded evenly, and that's good for me, for sure. Looks like the Stag Knights are going to be having a rough time too. And my front line, as long as they hold out for long enough, I think I'll be mostly okay. Man, I really should have taken regrowth though. If you look at Alariel, like I have so much Winds of Magic. See, Stag Knights are still holding out pretty well though. Wow, look at that. My Dragon Prince is even routed. That is mildly bad for me. Especially if Alariel gets caught here. So I should zoom in and make sure she has an escape route. Come on, Alariel. Get out of there. Oh my gosh, the Sylvan Knight mass. Looks like Alariel is gonna have to stand on her own here. Let's go ahead and bring some archers to help her out. And look at that, the Dragon Princess came back. Heroes. Absolute heroes. The interesting thing here that's very different about the usual High Elf versus Wood Elf matchup is that I have no archers to really compromise. And that's gonna make it a lot harder for Butcherbird, I think. Yeah, for Butcherbird to actually for them to find a unit to dive in on. Like, even though they have tons of cavalry, it's gonna be a little bit difficult. Now I think if I had like 2 archers here, they'd still be relatively safe. So I don't think it actually changes that much in terms of the matchup. But it's important to note. It is also interesting to see having so many of such similar units. I know people do like having unit diversity, and then this sort of playstyle sort of is quite different from that. So far, I'm it seems like the meta is more or less the same with under the new rule set, with the exception that I guess skirmishers are a little bit hit. But all the games that I've played have essentially felt the same as they did before. And I think that's very important to note. Basically, what I take from that is that even if we do change the rules pretty drastically, it doesn't really feel like the end of the world. The games will still more or less play out the same way. Although, we'll have to see long term whether or not skirmish play styles are still viable. Because if they're no longer viable in competitive play, that would definitely be pretty bad. A nerf to skirmishers, you hope Lotus is still breathing? I think Lotus is making their own rule set. I think they've been working on it for a while now, but I've had no word from it, so who knows? Rip my Dragon Princes though. I really should have. I really should have supported them better with Alariel. GG. Thanks, you too. All right, let's go ahead and support the win, and then queue up for another one. And another one. Can you please allow double star dragon? Like that can be something that's considered. Like right now the rules are in extreme experimentation mode. So you know, keep that in mind, and yeah, we can test it out. Before in the past, double star dragon wasn't really liked because of the healing from Alariel. I'm wondering if it's any different right now. We'll have to see. Lotus Moon rule set, 8 skirmisher minimum. That would be something for sure. All right, and looks like we have our next opponent. Let's go ahead and message them. Oh, looks like I can't message them. I'll have to message them on my Discord. Let's see. No Star Dragon cannot be considered. Dragons are much worse now. I think it's only fair. If we're considering things like... let's see. Sorry, I just need to set up the lobby. If we're considering things like lowering the skirmisher limit and all these crazy changes, I think it's at least worth it to consider. I don't think we'll be like, throwing it into the rules super quickly or anything. In fact, I don't think any of the changes are making it into the official rules anytime soon. But it's something to think about. Let's see, the map is going to be Mortis Wastes, and my opponent is picking first. There we go. Let's see, the Star Dragon problem was a techless net Kindle Flame double breath. Oh, I see. Interesting, interesting. Is there I guess if there's not a lot of counter to play to that, that could be pretty crazy. It is a lot of winds of magic, but if you can like one-shot lords, I could see that being a pretty big problem. Yeah, for a lot of these issues, at least in my perspective, these changes came in after I started, or no, they came in before I started playing a lot of Warhammer multiplayer. So I didn't really know how bad it was in the past. But yeah, given that the techless double breath hasn't really been changed at all, and I don't think the meta really counters that or anything, I could see that I could see the super weapon thing staying that way. It's not spending 6k gold on a single combo. You also get 2 Star Dragons. Let's not forget. And techless. So that, I would say that is a fairly large win, I would say. Not to mention you can snipe out high priority targets. Like, if you want to have some practice games sometime, I'd be down to test it out with you specifically. But it's something to think about. Just we'll be keeping in mind the fact that it would mean that double Star Dragon breath would be possible. And given that we have a limit on Stegodons, I think that would be a hard change to push for. No one ever takes steam tanks, allow for 2 of them. I personally wouldn't mind if steam tanks weren't lost the super weapon tag. I think there's a lot of outdated sections to the rules like that can be edited, but I'm not the only person working on the rules. Now what faction do I want to play? He banned Coast and Dwarves. Guess I'll go Lizardman. This will be important too because it means that the skirmisher limit exists. So 2 steam tanks would be fine too. I think 2 steam tanks doesn't really matter. Like, if you want to take 2. Like, honestly, I'm pretty open to having the rules allow a ton of different options. Allow some cheese. As long as there's counterplay, I'm okay with it. But at the moment, I'm sticking with the group. And we'll see how that progresses. Now, for this Lizardman build, will do. For this Lizardman build, what we have, usually before, I would go for more Pterodons, but because these solar engines count as skirmishers, I can't go for nearly as many Pterodons as I could before. So this does limit the Lizardman build. I think, let's see here. How else do I want? We'll see if this still plays out well enough, though. I can go for Mazdamundi. And go for the usual kit on him. But I will need another option to deal with Bretonnian archers than before. So we'll see how that plays out. I can't go for skink chiefs either. And I will say this does feel pretty limiting. As it is the norm to go for a lot of range units as lizardmen. And even if I'm going for a box style of play, I do feel that the skirmisher limit is limiting me. We'll continue to play it out though. I'll go for the usual Saurus spear box, which does use up most of my money. And let's see, a little bit of something else. So the monsters are mostly filled out. I could go for sacred Croxagores actually. That could be pretty fun. I heard that they're quite nice in boxes also. I'll test it out. Double double steam tank regrowth against Dowie. That sounds hilarious. I think it'd be a fun, innovative build, though. I don't know if it'd be super cheesy to warrant banning steam tanks, but who knows? Who knows? I will go for the Sacred Croxagores. They also give magic damage, which is pretty nice here. And I might just take a Skink Chief for Wind Blast, like a Skink Priest of Heavens. This could work as a fairly nice alternative to, in terms of instead of a Pterodon. The main downside, of course, is that he does use the Winds of Magic, which does sort of suck, but I think I'll live. Yeah, and the Wind Blast is just to knock down archers and to get them to rout. The range is a little bit short. Only 100 meters. But as long as I'm advancing, I should be fine. Let's see. How do I want to do the rest of my units? I'll stick with Saurus Spears. I have so much extra money, though. Not even that oppressive if dwarves prepare for it as a possibility. I see, J Phoenix, you like the side of more lax army limits by the sounds of it. It's more of a philosophy thing, really. I think either way you go about it, you'll still likely see a variety of builds. As long as you don't go too far. Like if you allow everything, you'll just see a lot of cheese. And if you get too restrictive, then obviously you won't get a ton of variety. Do I just want to chevron my Saurus Spears? That seems like a little bit silly. 200 gold worth of Saurus Spear chevrons? That seems like a huge waste, but I'll try it out. So, if I am correct, this build should be legal. And we'll see how it plays out. It's time for double steam tank versus Dowie matchup. Up army limits to 500 minimum. I could see that working. It depends on how restrictive we want to change the rules. Like it would remove some builds. I think a lot of builds that stay really low to the army limits do feel a bit cheesy. Like there's a lot of different suggestions I want to explore. I know a lot of people are memeing a bit. Or a lot. Oh, what the? Oh, I accidentally turned on battle realism again. I don't know why that always happens. Sorry, looks like battle realism is on. Well, that's unfortunate, but we'll live. No balance of power today, guys. I'll have to make do without it. But here we go. So this Lizardmen build is going to be changed significantly from how you would usually play it. Usually you would try to max out on Pterodon riders. And this makes it where solar engines essentially they really screw that up quite a bit. As yeah, you can't take nearly as many air skirmishers. And I do have Mazdamundi. I do still have a ton of spells, so I think I'll be decent against archers. But we'll see how it goes. You'll say one thing about loosening up the rules. The WHC Warhammer Cup rules essentially died when they removed all super weapon caps. Just keep it in mind. That's good to know. That's good to know. Now, whether or not that's happenstance, I'd be interested to hear. But I could see how that happens. Like, essentially, whenever a rule set gets bad enough where people just really dislike it, you're gonna see other rule sets come into play. So absolute worst case scenario, the rules that we're working on right now are just terrible, and then people will move on to something different. So I think all shall be fine. Now, strangely enough, this Bretonnian build, despite me not being able to take as many skirmishers, this Bretonnian build actually went pretty light on the archers, and that's gonna be pretty nice for me, I would say. Go ahead and just start killing peasant bowmen with solar engines. In fact, I'm gonna hit the Hippogriff Knights and see how well I can shut those guys down. Also turn off fire at will. Definitely want to be saving ammunition where I can. Now I'm gonna shoot at some cavalry because they are one of the more high priority targets here. Alright, so sweet. Pterodons just getting into position, dropping rocks where they can. That's a pretty nice drop rocks on the left flank. There we go. It's real good. Take a look at those knights. They're still getting beat up. Amazing. And then I can go ahead and dive into an engagement and give a missile resist buff with my Thoris. That should help out quite a bit. And right now I think I've already established a pretty nice lead. Dude, who's this in the air, by the way? Alberic. Wow. That's pretty surprising. A cool, yeah, this matchup revolves around killing the archers. The less... Having fewer pterodons is definitely very felt, but I think it's okay. Ice Power says he saw the new rules and he's definitely not happy. I'm gonna wager a guess and say that it's because of the changes to Dark Elves and how shades got changed. That seems to be the most common thing that people tend to bring up. Yeah, I know, right? He took Alberic, the madman. Go ahead and throw a wind spell over here. Pull the Stegodons out. I think box build for Lizardmen, just based off this single sample size, it seems like Lizardmen can still do at least decently. Because if you can't take as many of a unit, you just spend the money somewhere else. And as long as you're cost efficient, still more or less plays out the same. Although the balance, I'm not sure how the balance of power actually is right now because I can't see it. So who knows? Maybe things are gonna go terribly. In fact, my Saurus warriors are sort of having a hard time. All these men-at-arms are actually killing my Saurus warriors pretty hard. At the very least, I've killed off all the archers though. So if I can win this melee engagement, that's going to be really good for me. The forest camp rules seem weird. What about them? I want to know. The forest camp rules are really specific. I will say that. Because they essentially try to encapsulate everything that should be legal for the forests. But because the forest usage is so finicky, when you sort of list out everything that is possible, it gets really long. There we go. Alberic does fall. These Sacred Croxagores are pretty fun too. They are extraordinarily tanky. It's pretty great. Nice, another Shield of the Old Ones, amazing. And I wish I could chase off Alberic here, but I actually don't have any skirmishers nearby to help out. But hey, I have solar engines and they can poke away at them. That should work out just fine. Rush Kite hybrid builds are probably hit the hardest for Lizardmen. Let's see here. That makes sense a lot. The Dark Elf matchup is probably hurt from the Lizardmen side. It says Tequila Sunset. Like, the Dark Elf matchup is probably hurt from the Lizardmen side. As in Dark Elves have an advantage or a disadvantage? Many of the rules seem overly strict, unless you're misinterpreting. Yes, they are overly strict. I think it's mostly just a test, though. From what I gather from discussions in the rules Discord, it's not exactly something that we're aiming for. It's more so something that we're just testing out. Just because, you know, there are a lot of opinions about how to take the rules, and we want to make sure that we're at the very least trying out different ideas, at least for a few days. I think in the end, though, we should expect the rules to get more and more relaxed as time goes on. I don't think they're going to get any more strict at this point. In fact, I think I was talking with FNG, and he said that that's sort of the plan. He started out basically as strict as possible, and then we're going to pull back as needed. So there we go. That game worked out okay. I think if there were more archers, it actually could have been pretty scary, as I don't know how many tools I actually had to kill archers properly. But, you know, more testing will be needed. It does feel like the Lizardmen roster is pretty restricted, though, and that it will pull them away from a lot of the units that they would usually like bringing. And in terms purely of restrictions, it does feel like they do get restricted pretty hard, sort of unnecessarily. Let's see. So what was the next match? It's gonna be Oakenhammer. See, there we go. Okay, map set, and I'm picking. So let's see, what do we want to experiment here? I could go for Dark Elves and just try a normal kite style. I think the Dark Elf shade thing doesn't really matter too much, just because shades aren't used very often, but it does sort of suck. So you know what? I feel like going Wood Elves instead. I'll go Wood Elves, ban, and this is good because he played Bretonia. What do I ban? Empire and something else. Empire and High Elves, maybe? I want to test out the High Elf matchup, though. I guess Empire and Greenskins makes the most sense. So, this rule set has a High Elf roster as restricted as it's ever been. Essentially, Sisters of Twilight are... yeah, they count as skirmishers. Wave Stalkers will count as skirmishers. It's all gonna be pretty hard to field the kite styles that you usually do. Of course, kite can rely on cavalry for cost efficiency too, but I'm interested. This could play out terribly or decently. I'm really interested to see how a more relaxed version of the rules play out, though. I might contact, I'll probably bring that up in the rules discussion. Okay, and we're seeing Lizardmen, interesting. So a lot of the usual counterpicks sort of not being gone for, but instead opting for a fairly even matchup, I would say. This matchup actually doesn't change very much from the usual. Although one fun thing that I can do, I can take a bunch of Wild Riders. I can do something like this. Because before these guys would count as the same unit. And instead, now they all, now they count as variants. So we'll see how gross this is. To be honest, you think the right rules are really good. And the experimental rules kind of hurt their release since everyone is reading those instead. Yes, in terms of release, if I would change something, I would have just released the right rules first. As a, as sort of something that's like, you know. It's a nice step from banner rules, where essentially everything is the same, except we updated the things that needed to be updated. The fact that the right rules are so controversial, which they were meant to be, it means that, yeah, people are sort of missing out on the fact that, you know, looking at the forest changes and so on, and you have tons of discussions everywhere. Something to think about. But yeah, that definitely sort of sucks. All right, now this is an insane cavalry build. Essentially, I've maxed out on this front. Let's see, Chrysalis free. You might go for a defensive box play, but I think that's pretty rare when it comes to Lizardmen. And actually, this matchup would be pretty well in favor for the Wood Elves, because the Lizardmen can't field nearly as many kite tools. That should work out quite well for me. If I do run into Saurus Warriors, though, this does lose outright. I also don't have a caster, so I'll get on that. I do think, J Phoenix, you say, I do think people would be a lot happier if they only saw the Ripe Edition. I think so too. At this point, it's sort of too late to go back. So we'll have to live with the decisions that have been made, unfortunately. However, the feedback, at least in my Discord, and especially in chat today, has been very, very welcome. I don't think anything really gets out of hand. And like very, like, yeah, very infrequently do I see someone just flipping out because of the rules. So honestly, even though a lot of people are expressing their concerns, I think it's more just the quantity of people rather than like a full blown out problem. And that does help me sleep better. Okay, now this is sort of a ridiculous build. I have so much cavalry here. I don't even know what to do with it. But it's gonna be interesting. The map is pretty large, which does make things a bit more awkward for me, and I have no range units. So perhaps flyers could really pose a problem here. I'm sort of happy with how this is going. Of course, I think Sylvan Knights could have been taken as an alternative anyways. So the fact that Wild Riders are variants doesn't really change up too much here. But we'll see. Man, if only we just released the Ripe Edition first, even for just a day, and then have the Unripe Edition. Because now a lot of people, well, a common misconception that I'm hearing is that people feel like the Unripe Edition, the one in testing, is going to be the de facto. Oh my gosh, I forgot. Got to turn on the thing. Crap, I forgot about battle realism again. All right, well, that's a pain. Anyways, yeah, a lot of people feel like the test version is something that we are gonna be implementing like very soon or something. And that is simply not the case. But the way we announced it definitely made it seem like that was. So I do take the blame for, at least partial blame for how things turned out. Hey JR, how's it going? You can repaint those oranges. Replant those oranges. Oh. Well, you know, I hope it all goes okay. And, you know, worst case scenario, someone else will write a different rule set. Absolute worst case scenario. And that's all okay. Now, the Lizardmen build. See 2 Bastiladons. So in terms of chameleon skinks, this army should be pretty limited. I am pretty exposed to getting wrecked by chameleon skinks. But, we'll see. We'll see how this goes. My infantry does trade effectively into Saurus warriors. But, I don't think they want to be up against so many of them. At the moment, I'm just gonna focus on advancing though. Dodging with the branch wraith. Looks like she gets hit anyways. Usually, if you want to dodge, you need a hill to do okay. But here we go. Now, the Lizardmen, they are adopting a defensive box formation. This is perfectly normal and expected for the Lizardmen. Gonna give my forces insane charge bonus. And then try and just collapse in on everything here. Orion should do pretty well. My cavalry slamming into the infantry. Should be able to get some pretty decent damage, I think. Looks like that fight over there is going great. Branch Wraith with a pendulum can do rather well, as there is a huge blob of forces here. And Orion just buffing up that charge bonus. Doing real good, apparently. Because we are seeing the Lizardmen route off real fast. Which is pretty surprising. I would have expected it to go a little bit worse for me, especially since the Lizardmen did manage to get into a box formation. But I guess a lot of money was spent on the Bastiladons, so. There we go. My cavalry is routing off at this point, though. And I'll need to be a bit careful here to make sure that I don't run out of cavalry for the late game. One way to manage that is to make sure that I deal with these solar engines. Just get Orion directly on top of them. Get some infantry there, and I think that'll work out just fine. Alright. Man, this matchup though under the new test rule set is very bad for Lizardmen. I can say that for sure. The fact that solar engines count as skirmishers just has a huge impact. And even with just a few games, I can be pretty confident about that. All right. Let's see. I guess the goal now, I'm gonna hunt down the Lord with Orion, just to get the leadership debuff on the solar engines. Since they generally have pretty bad leadership, and after they rout, I can simply chase them off with my Wild Riders. There we go, another game. I'm pretty surprised how well that went. I'm actually really surprised, but I think if there were more chameleon skinks, that build would not have been nearly as effective. Yeah, only 3 chameleon skinks. The cavalry didn't do too well for the Lizardmen either. Really weird game. But there we go. GG. Can't say he'll miss double solar verse 8. Yeah. Alright. So that was a pretty nice game. And yeah, okay. I think I'll play what? Let's see, you know what? I'm not gonna push myself here. I think that was a pretty nice initial test. Looks like a build someone took on the Heir of Carthage channel. Yeah, that was a really weird build. I think this was an interesting test though. I'm gonna end off the stream for now. But yeah, it was really nice getting to talk with you guys. It's really nice. It turns out my YouTube chat is actually one of the most like tame and respectful chats compared to anywhere else I've discussed before. So thank you very much, guys, for that. I will be streaming more in the future just to continue testing the rules, and of course all the feedback will be going to the team so that we can actually implement some changes fairly quickly. I would expect at least within a few days for us to push some changes out and to fix some of the glaring issues that people are obviously unhappy with. So that's going to be on the table. I'll be discussing with them. I think I have a better feel for the restrictions too, specifically with lizardmen. I think for dark elves, I actually didn't feel the restrictions as much because they're more or less the same except for shades. But man, lizardmen plays entirely differently, and yeah, that's something to consider for sure. As for 5 skirmishers, that doesn't really feel very different. And the limits on stuff like the High Elf, Lothar, and Sea Guard doesn't feel especially different from how it was before. So I think that's my spiel done. I'll wait for YouTube to catch up, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I'll be working on the rules.